Hey everybody, and good evening. Hopefully the live stream is up and running here. I am just waiting for it to start showing on my image on my monitor PC here, just to make sure everything is going. And it looks like we're live, so that's good news. If you guys can just let me know about the audio. If the audio is good, somebody can let me know either by typing in the chat box window. That would be great. I will begin in just a few minutes. Looks like there's about 8 people online at the moment, and it's going to be an interesting evening. It's not the best of conditions here in San Diego. In fact, I almost decided to cancel the live stream event. We've got some high clouds which were not predicted, um, and those are still up there, and it's definitely causing a few issues with the equipment. But we'll see what we can do. I'm still Well, maybe we'll get to see a supernova and maybe we won't. It's in the right place in the sky, but it's pretty low, and that means to say if there's cloud up there, we're going to be shooting through a lot of sky. Anyway, for those of you who have been on before, you know how I typically start this. I do a very brief, quick presentation to give you an introduction, and then we actually go into the live stream itself. And my name is Gary Hawkins. I'm located here in San Diego, California. I'm a member of the San Diego Astronomy Association, and this is our part of our outreach program for this year. Obviously, outreach has proved to be very difficult this year with the pandemic, and so a number of us have gone online. And this is now part of the outreach program that we're doing for San Diego Astronomy Association. As I said, I'm in the or close to the city of San Diego. In fact, I am actually about 15 miles north of the city center, which is here. I'm just outside the city of Poway, just inside the city limits for the city of San Diego, and we have Bortle 8 sky conditions here, so not very favorable. It's one of the reasons that I do EAA, which is Electronically Assisted Astronomy, for those that don't know. And it's also the other big advantage with EAA, its ability to effectively do outreach both online and to the public when they come to one of our outreach program events when conditions are a little bit more normal. I'm using the same setup that I've now been using for the last couple of weeks. It's a Celestron 8-inch Schmidt grain, and I must remember to edit that um, comment on the slide there, but it's an 8-inch Schmidt grain. This is a pretty vintage scope. It's in nice condition, apart from the corrector plate, which is pretty dirty, but it's a 1988 vintage scope. I am using a Celestron focal reducer behind the telescope, connects straight onto where the visual back would normally go, which brings my f down to 6.3 rather than f10. I have a 9 megapixel ZWO ASI 533 MC color camera that sits at the back end of the focal chain, and I would normally have a CCD CLS Optolong filter to knock down some of the sky glow, but tonight with the conditions the way they are, I figured every piece of light coming into the telescope would be useful, so that's out of the optical chain currently. I have an e-finder as well that gives you an idea of some of the challenges that I face here when with my outlook. I have a very restricted outlook from my back garden here. I can only see about 120 degrees of the sky and about 40 degrees above the horizon, lots of palm trees and so forth and so on. And you'll see as we take a look at a few targets as we go through the evening, some of those palm trees and everything shooting past us. And then finally, this is all on an equatorial mount. It's a Celestron AVX mount. It's pretty tired, but it does fine for EAA. I'm not sure I would like to use it for astrophotography, but it does fine for EAA. We will be using tonight a program called SharpCap Pro. SharpCap Pro is the kind of de facto standard for EAA these days. It's developed by a guy called Robin Glover based out of the UK. It's a tremendous piece of software. It's extremely powerful. Once you get to know it, I think those of us who use it on a regular basis will tell you that there's probably nothing out there that can beat it. Certainly, there may well be comparable products, but it's a very powerful tool. It's effectively free. The pro version that I pay for is about $15 a year, which is definitely worth the extra money. And basically, what we're going to be doing tonight is we're going to be taking snapshots, typically about 8 seconds. The way I've got things set up tonight, we're going to be applying a flat and a dark frame to that. These I've prepared earlier. The dark frame removes hot pixels, and the flat frame basically adjusts for any sensitivity variations across the sensor aperture. So hopefully we get a nice even illumination or effective illumination of the pixel map. And then basically, once we've taken a snapshot, we then take multiple snapshots. We align those snapshots and we stack them, and that has the effect of reducing the signal to noise ratio and increasing the quality of the picture. And then there's some final adjustments I can do at the end before I save the picture. But all the pictures you see tonight are effectively real time. You're going to be seeing the first image come through in about 8 seconds, and then they just continue to add every 8 seconds. And then I save that image directly to the hard drive. One of the things about electronic assisted astronomy, the way it's been defined, is you don't do any post-processing of the image. Everything is done on the fly, if you like, and you save directly and then move on to the next target. So I don't get image quality that is quite as good as Astro, but I get image quality that is quite comparable and is actually really good for doing outreach or just general viewing or so forth and so on. I kind of mentioned all the hardware. The main pieces of software that I'm using are SharpCap Pro that I've mentioned. I am going to be using extensively tonight the All Sky Plate Solver. You won't actually see me use the Plate Solver. What's going to happen is SharpCap Pro will actually call it in the background and then do its thing. I'm going to be using a star map called Carte de Ciel, which I happen to like and I've got set up particularly for the way that I kind of do my astronomy. You'll see when we get to the actual program that a lot of the major Messier targets are kind of called out in bold letters and so forth and so on. And I have a color palette there that allows me to see what type of target I'm looking at. And that's all kind of pulled together using ASCOM drivers. I will also be using the Celestron CPWI mount driving software, but unlike previous weeks, I am hopefully not going to use that very much at all. I'm going to rely on plate solving this evening. But with the conditions, I have been having some issues with plate solving, so I guess we'll see as we go along. And then the stream that you're watching, which hopefully is in high definition tonight, it certainly looks a lot better on my monitor PC. And I'm not sure if it's, let me see, just check the settings here, whether it's in high def or not, but I think it is. It certainly looks a lot better this evening. That's put together with a package called OBS, the Open Broadcast software. It's a free open source program. That basically pulls together the streams that I will, or that you will see, which currently is my desktop and also the video camera. I am actually going to switch the video camera off when I get to the end of this presentation, just simply because then it gives, you can see the full real estate of my desktop screen as we move forward. So that's the presentation, and well, actually 2 more slides, I guess. So I kind of mentioned what what my I'm going to be working at f6.3. The focal length, the effective focal length for the setup that I've got this evening is 1300 millimeters. That gives me a field of view of just under half a degree. I'm going to be doing 8-second subs tonight rather than 15-second subs. And I usually run these presentations for about an hour and a half, but that kind of depends on the conditions tonight. So we'll see. If you've got questions, please feel free to ask them. There is about an 8 to 10-second delay from when I actually speak to when you hear me and then have time to type an answer back or something. So if I don't answer straight away, please bear with me. The question is coming up on the chat window and I will answer it as soon as I see it. And if you have a request for a target as well, I can do those, but I am very limited to what I can see. So that might not be as easy as it sounds. I can basically only see from 0 to 120 from San Diego, and some fit nothing below 30 degrees and more typically 40 degrees. And I won't cross the meridian. Everything that I'll shoot tonight is on the east side of the meridian. If I go on the west side of the meridian, the balancing of the scope is not ideal because I'm balanced so that I'm taking the backlash out on the east side of the pointing direction. And as I said, I'm a member of the San Diego Astronomy Association. I know that we've got a couple of folks on from SDAA this evening, and welcome to them and welcome to others that are joining us tonight. And you can find us at our website. And of course, we are on Facebook. And I'm not sure if we got a YouTube channel. I know I have a YouTube channel, which is where the stream will end up. But I'm not sure if the association has one. Maybe Dave or Woody or somebody, if you know the answer to that question, you can just type it in the chat box. Okay, so let me just sort my screen out here. I am going to just go into OBS briefly and turn off my video capture so that you see my desktop. And we will go straight to SharpCap. And as I said before, I have two cameras running. This is the first camera. This is a ZWO ASI 224MC. It's a very small sensor camera running into a zoom lens, a TV zoom lens. It's about 12 millimeters, I'm guessing. So I got a field of view here of about 20 to 30 degrees, and it just allows me to see my horizon and where I'm pointing at. And I use this specifically for outreach because it gives you an idea of some of the challenges I've got with these trees. And it's also extremely handy for me, particularly when I can't see the telescope, which sometimes I can't because I'll run it off of a long USB cable, as to whether the scope is actually pointing into, vegetation or the sky. And then my main camera is the second camera. I'm currently centered on a star that is close to the first target I'm going to go and take a look at this evening. And I didn't want to do that. And we'll go from there. And then I'm kind of hopeful that we're going to look at a few targets this evening. And I'd really like to show you the supernova if I can, because it's kind of interesting and it's got some nice links to San Diego. But again, whether that actually happens is going to be very weather dependent. And I'll probably do that the last thing, simply because it's quite low on the horizon at the moment. And the higher it gets up in the sky, obviously, the better imaging that we're going to get. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to Cart Seal. This is my SkyMap package, and I'll come back so that you can see. Whoops, didn't want to do that. There we go. Yeah, it's looking a bit better. So this is my horizon here, going from north to south. This is the meridian in the dark gray. So that is that prominent because I don't want to do a meridian flip. So I have that nice and prominent on my package. And this is primarily the area of the sky that we're going to be looking at today. We can see a good amount in this area here, and we can see certain things in this area here. So this is kind of the area of the sky we're going to look at. And the first target we'll pick up, just because it's nice and close and easy, is M15, which, as you know, is a globular cluster. And if I zoom in, hopefully, didn't quite get that right. Let me try that again. If I zoom in to where M15 is, which is right here, you will see, actually I missed M15, so let me get him. Yeah, there's M15. If I zoom in there, and I'm going to slew my mount to M15, you'll see the mount move across from where I had it parked to M15, and the big square is there just so that you can easily see the region of the sky that I'm pointing to. The small square is actually the field of view of my sensor orientated correctly to the field of view that you're seeing on the sky map. So I can use this smaller inner square here to frame objects if I want to be really precise. So we're on M15. We're going to go back to SharpCap, and we're just going to turn the live stack off. And what I should see now is a snapshot picture come through, an 8-second snapshot picture, and as you can see, we're not a million miles away from the target already. You can actually see M15 here, close to the center of the screen. And what you're seeing now is just individual snapshot 8-second images coming through. So the first thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to center the image, and hopefully this is going to work, because like I say, I've been having some problems with the plate solving. And to initiate the plate solving in SharpCap, there is a set of scope controls that sit at the bottom of the camera control panel, and there is one here that's a circle with a sort of thing around it, which is plate solve and sync. And if I click that, the next image will be captured, stored, go to the plate solver, and the plate solver will then hopefully extract enough sources once it's downsampled the image to plate solve and determine where it is, and then it will correct the mount position. So this actually takes about as long for the downsampling as it does for the plate solving, and it usually takes about 30 seconds in general. So it's now going through that process. It's already done the plate solve. It's resyncing the mount next to me now, and the next snapshot picture that I see should give me M15 right in the center of the screen, and I can show you that that's pretty accurate. So with this plate solving, I've done no alignment of the mount at all, except for to do a quick align when I first set it up. So what I did do was my AVX mount is always outside under some weather protection, so it's aligned correctly with the polar with the pole star, so that it's appropriately polar aligned. But when I switch the mount on, all I do is a quick align, which effectively just gets you through to the next menu. It doesn't do anything. And the plate solving will work as long as I end up within 15 degrees of the target. Well, if the mount is anywhere close to decent, right, you should be able to get within 15 degrees of the target. And so all I then have to do is click the plate solve button. It plate solves as you saw it, and it moves the image straight into the center of the screen. So that's the way it normally works. And if the sky was perfect, or if the sky was normal, shall I say, I'd be able to do this all night. I would not look at any sort of manual alignment. I would just plate solve and move, plate solve and move. We may run into problems this evening because if I get particularly low and I'm shooting through some cloud that's up there, things will start to go wrong. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually now going to improve that image. So I'm going to live stack it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to type in the name of my target because I want to be able to save it in a folder that is representative of the name of the target. I'm then going to clear my stack. The first image is going to get pulled in, and that's going to be my first image. And now all of the rest of the images that come in are going to be aligned to this first image. And if they align correctly in the alignment process, you will see the stack number go up, and you'll see the exposure time go up. And so now I've stacked 3 images. I'm at 24 seconds. When I stack 4 images, I'll be at 32 seconds, and so forth and so on. So now that's stacking. The next thing I do is I go down to my histogram, which is my live stack histogram. And this is where I control what is going to show here. So the first thing I'm going to do is, because obviously this is, it's not a huge target, but it's not particularly small. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so that I can actually see a little bit more of the image. And then typically what I do with the histogram controls, I've got 3 basic things here. I've got a black level that I can move up and down. And if I move it way over to the left, the black goes gray because there's not a lot of black down there. I have a white level at the top, which controls my maximum brightness and where that clips. I usually leave that set on the right hand side. And then the most important control is the midpoint control, which allows me to go up and down between the midpoint and between the black level and the white level. And typically with experience, what you find is the best place to put the black level is right around this peak. And usually then once you've done that, you move in like so. And you basically just, what I try, it kind of depends on your personal preferences here. I like a relatively nice black dark background, so I tend not to go gray like that with lots of noise. I tend to pull this over to go black, and I will just adjust that. And that's not too bad. Let me go back to the full image. Let me zoom back in again. That's not too bad. And what I can do, if I want more fine adjustment, instead of just moving the slider backwards and forwards like I was doing, I can press the Shift key and I can now pull that slider, and it actually moves very slowly compared to how it moved a minute ago. And that actually allows me to do much finer control. Maybe I might just allow a little bit of gray into this. Maybe I'll bring the midpoint over. That probably went too far. Okay. That's not too bad a rendition of M15. You can see we are burning out a little bit in the middle here, but you can certainly see lots of individual stars as we get out from the core, and that those stars kind of rolling off there. And now now that I'm relatively pleased with my image, and in fact, if we go over to, so if you just note the position of this star here and this star here, if I go back to cart to seal and you look at let me just zoom in a little bit. That's this star here and this star here. So you can see how now that I've orientated my frame with what the camera is actually seeing and what's on cart to seal, you can see how I can frame a picture, and this is particularly good for like nebula and stuff like that. So we go back to Sharp Cap, and we can now save that image. And so I will just basically go down into the save thing. And typically what I do is save as exactly as seen, and that will drop a PGN file into the appropriate folder. And that's saved. I can choose what color space, and I can choose my capture area and my format and everything through all of these various sharp capture controls that I've got down the side panel here. So I've got control of the capture area and format. I've got camera controls that are in here. I've got image controls. I'm running a cooler. This is a cooled camera. It's not really necessary for EAA, but I've also got some aspirations to do astrophotography at some time, so I bought a camera that could do both. So I'm running, since I've got a cooler there, I might as well use it. So I'm running at about -5 degrees. And there's some miscellaneous controls that, to be perfectly honest, I have no idea what they do. They're just set to their default values. This is the pre-processing. You can see that I'm subtracting a dark and a flat file, which I find useful even for a camera like the 553, particularly on the flat side of it, because there is a little bit of vignetting as it goes out towards the outside. And then this is another histogram that I can actually do further image enhancement with, but to be perfectly honest, you either want to be using this histogram down here or this one up here. If you start using both of them, unless I can show you a way of using both of them, I might do a little bit later on, but unless you're using both of them, it can overstretch the image. And these are my mount controls, so I can actually drive the mount from here. I can set my tracking, I can set my rates, and most importantly, I can do my plate solving. So that was M15. So what I will do now is we'll just zoom back out again, and we'll see what else is around. And one of the things that I typically like to do is I will often just stay in a very limited area of the sky and just maneuver around looking at targets that are close to me. And I see I've got a galaxy that's just sitting off to the side here. I'm not particularly familiar with this galaxy, but we are very close to it, so we'll go and take a look and see if we can actually see what's there. So we're going to go and take a look at NGC 7094, and you might wonder how I know that's a galaxy, and that's because I have my galaxies. Actually, I got to think about this a second. I'm not sure if that is a galaxy. In fact, I think that is a planetary nebula. Yes, that is a planetary nebula, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, I'm not sure if I've even ever seen this target before. So anyway, we've moved on to our target. Let me kill the live stack, and I will initiate a plate solve, just because I think it's always kind of nice, unless you're just trying to do some specific framing, to move the image into the center. Let's just see if that works. I can usually tell whether it's going to work because once it's done the downsampling, if it comes up with a large number of up here, it's yes. So like 986 sources, it's going to solve, and it's solved already. So it's now going to nudge the mount, which it's now doing, and the mount has now repositioned itself, and so our target is going to be right there. Of course, we can't see it yet, or let's see if it shows up on the next one, but it's going to be right there. So I'm going to turn that off, and let's start the live stack going, and let's see what actually happens. So this was, let me just remind myself, it was NGC 7094. So again, I go back to my target, NGC 7094. Type that in up there, and SharpCap has got this weird thing that if you don't type the name in before you start the stack going, it doesn't allow you to change the name afterwards. So you always type the name in first and then clear the stack. And now what will happen is it will obviously start collecting frames. And let's see if there is a planetary nebula there. I have no idea how big this planetary nebula is, and I don't think I've ever looked at it. And I reckon it might be there, and if it is going to be really small. But let's see. We'll give it a few stacks and see where it goes, and if something works out here, that'll be great, and if nothing works out, we'll move on to another target. Okay, that probably went way too far there. Okay, it's going to be challenging. Right, let's see if we can find something here. I think there is something there, but I think it's incredibly small. And it's so small, I'm actually even struggling to see it. I'm wondering if it's this here, in which case it is a tiny planetary nebula and it's way, way out. So we're not going to waste any more time on this because clearly there's not much of a target there at all. So let's go back to cart to seal. Let's just zoom out and let's go find another target in this. Well, we can find a target anywhere. It doesn't really matter too much. Some of the targets that I would normally image are actually rolling over the meridian already. Yeah, let's go over to M52 over there. So now you can see my mount slewing. And I think Woody was saying the planetary nebula that I was trying to image there was about 1.6 arc minutes in size. So yeah, extremely small. Which actually doesn't bode well for this galaxy in supernova, because the galaxy that I was hoping to look at is not much bigger. The reason that I'm actually going to try and image this galaxy was because I was on another live stream event 2 nights ago. A friend of mine called Corey over in Boston, and he actually brought up a nice image using an 8-inch Newtonian, just running a little bit faster. And so from that perspective, I felt there was a really good chance that we could also take a look as well. And like I said, there is an interesting connection to San Diego. So we'll see if we can still do that at the end of the evening. So the M52, we will go into Sharp Cap. We will turn off our live stack. We will do a plate solve. While that's plate solving, I'll type in my target name and let's see if everything goes okay on the plate solver here. Usually I wouldn't even question whether this was going to work. It normally just works time after time after time once it's up and running. They can be a little tricky to set up, but once you've got them set up, they're usually fine. But when you've got cloud and things, then obviously if you're pointing at some cloud, then things are not going to work out quite so well. But anyway, it looked like it picked up enough bits of interest to plate solve, so it's now obviously trying to fit the image to the standard fields that I've already downloaded, and hopefully it will solve. So we'll give it a couple of seconds here. This actually doesn't look quite as promising. Normally it has solved by now. I might just poke it again and see what happens. Okay, let's just ease my gain up a little bit and let's just give that, we'll plate solve that again. Oh, actually it did plate solve, it got there eventually. So we should now be moving our target into, oh, rats. Oh, okay, so okay, so here we go. Okay, we got it. So yes, so it did plate solve, just took a little longer than anticipated. And here we have M52, which is an open cluster. Let me just bring down my zoom, and we will start a live stack. I will clear, and now we'll just start collecting these images. Because it's an open cluster, we're not going to have to collect too many images, simply because it's all stars. Typically with nebula, you need to collect a few more, and I'm already going to start adjusting my histogram. And just bring that to there. Take a little bit of a zoom in to the target area. You can see now that once I've zoomed in, I've got a little bit of noise in there. So probably I will just back this down a little bit. Maybe pull this one a little bit as well. Let's back this down just a little bit more. And now you can see that noise down here is almost down to 0. So now when I pull back, I've got a pretty decent image of M52. Open clusters never show quite as well in EAA as other types of target, but again, I think it is what it is, and it's a fairly decent thing. One of the nice things about doing EAA is that you actually get color, right? So you can see here the young stars of the open cluster, which are very much a white color, and you can see many of the other stars that are not associated with the open cluster that are all sorts of different colors depending upon their age. And hopefully there's no hot pixels there, although to be perfectly honest, that looks like a hot pixel that doesn't appear to have got picked up by the dark frame. But you can see a number of other stars in here which are much, much older in terms of their age. So that is M52. So again, once I've got an image that I'm happy with, and I'll probably just tweak that back that way a little bit, I would then save that image. And what's going to happen over a period of time here is if I go to my capture image, just go to my SharpCap folder, you'll see what's happening here, today's date, and you can see the capture folders for the various targets that I've imaged so far this evening. And obviously over a period of time, this will just build up. And you can typically be targeting probably, 10 or so targets an hour if you just go from target to target and you don't spend too much time imaging them. In fact, I've seen as many as 18 done in 1 hour, which is quite impressive. For seeing lots of different things in the night sky. Okay, so we are now, we've looked at a couple of different targets. Let's see what else we should go look at today. Let's go look at perhaps a nebula now. And I know from my sky map here that the purple line represents a nebula, and this is Caldwell 9. So I'm just going to reposition the mount on Caldwell 9. The mount's repositioned. So again, I will go back to SharpCap. I'll change my name up there. Just let the mount settle. I'll do a plate solve. So I'm going to grab the next frame, and it's going to determine where I am, or it knows where I want it to be. It's going to work out the difference, and it's then going to just nudge the mount back into where it should be. And this is an extremely accurate way, as you've already seen. It's accurate within 1 or 2 arc minutes of positioning, so it really does make this whole thing super easy. If you've been with me last week, you would have seen that sorry, I was just getting distracted there. You would have seen that I was using CPWI for positioning, and typically CPWI is only accurate to within about zero point 0.1 of a degree, which is fine, but it's not brilliant. All right, so I was not watching what was happening here, apart from the fact I forgot to do something here. So okay, so I've paused live stacking. Let me just do that again. I didn't actually see if the mount moved. So it's extracting its sources. It's downsampling the image. And if I was actually shooting with us, like doing 2x binning, for instance, it wouldn't need to go through the down sampling process. It would probably make it faster. Well, it would make it faster. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But obviously, I like the maximum resolution, particularly if we're looking at small targets, which is why I've not got binning set. So anyway, we've repositioned this time, so that's great. We've got our name up in the target box. I'll reinitiate my live stack. I will clear, and let's see what we get here for Caldwell 9. And Caldwell 9, I may have picked, yeah, so this may be a bit of a tricky target for us, but we'll see. This is the Cave Nebula, and I know that the Cave Nebula is pretty weak in terms of its nebulosity, so we may actually struggle here to bring an image out, particularly with the cloud this evening. This might not have been the best of choices. So while we're doing that, I will just go and take another look at character seal. We'll give this a few moments and see what happens, and see if we want to pull onto a different target. And as you will know from previous broadcasts that I've done, my knowledge of the sky is only slowly building up here. It's not something that I've been doing for a long time, and so a lot of the targets that I'm looking at, I won't instantly recognize their NGC number to know whether I'm going to get a good or a bad target here. But I'm sure over time that will obviously improve. I'm just kind of working out where I might go next. Right. Okay. Might have a look down there in a couple of seconds. And in the meantime, the other image that we were looking at, the cave thing, is just stacking in the background there. So we're not wasting time here. We will soon find out whether that is good. So in fact, why don't we go and do that now and see what we got here. Oh, so yes, so we've got a tiny, we can start to see some details here, but I can tell you that this is a difficult target. It's a pretty weak, diffuse nebula. And so I'm gonna just inch my controls across here and see if I can. In fact, I might do this a different way. So there are two ways, as I said, to kind of use these histograms. At the moment, I've just been using this bottom histogram, and this is a good way of doing things when you've got sort of a general image. But it doesn't give you, you can see I'm dealing with very narrow histogram peaks. And so tiny movements of my histogram bar is going to have a fairly large impact on the image, and I've got very little to play with here. So another way that I found is if I actually widen these out like so, I can now look at my display histogram over here, and you will see that if I widen it out a bit further, that peak gets narrower. If I bring this in, that peak gets wider, and now I can work just in this area by using white midpoint and black midpoint and white again. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to move my black point over here, and then I'm really going to bring this one in. Okay, I'm going to have to bring that. I took too much detail out, so I'm going to, here we go. So I'm going to bring that. Okay. So we are not going to see a lot here just because of the type of nebula that it is. It's not a particularly, as I said, particularly strong signal from a light perspective, but you can actually start to see now the cave nebula beginning to form, and you can start to see some of the outline. It's not particularly good, but it does at least give you an idea of kind of what's going on here. There are obviously much better nebula that we could be looking at, but this at least does start to show you part of the outline of the cave nebula. So we'll just give that a couple more minutes. I'm going to go across here, and I am going to take a quick look at some other targets that are around me here and see if I want to pull up one of those. And again, if anybody's got any suggestions for targets they want to see, please let me know. I might go and take a look at the Crescent Nebula if it hasn't already rolled across the medium, but we'll check that in a minute. Oh, okay, so this, yeah, so let's go and take a look at IC 1805, which is the Heart Nebula. That is a nebula that appears quite frequently, particularly in the Astro Guys posts. So let's go and see if we can take a look at that. So I'm not going to save this. This is obviously a pretty poor image of the Cave Nebula, so I'm just going to move on from that one. I am actually going to put my IC 1805 in there, and I'm going to turn the live stack off. I'm going to come down and I'm going to plate solve. Actually, it would help if I even move the mount. So let me go back and do that first of all. So let me go and that will confuse the plate solver without a shadow of a doubt. So let's cancel that. And let's just check that we're not going to whack into some trees here. So we'll first of all take a look. Ooh, this is going to be close. Oh, that's interesting. So if you're wondering, let me, what happened there? Okay, so if you're wondering what this white thing is sticking up, this is actually a HF ham radio antenna, and that is the balun that's sitting up above the ground that I'm shooting over the top of. And as you can see, it's kind of yellowing out my main image. So I'm going to have to just give that a few minutes so it rises a little higher on the horizon. So while we're doing that, let's just whiz across to Andromeda, because that is, I'm pretty sure, in the clear. And then we'll come back to maybe the Heart Nebula in a couple of minutes, because I'd actually like to see what the Heart Nebula looks like. And we would also, we'll probably go down to M33 as well and have a quick look over it there. Sharp Cap Pro question: can it do a full screen display of the camera without the menus? Yes, if you have a second monitor it allows you to display the image to the second monitor, and then all your control panels come up on the first monitor. You can also do, I can show you what you can do within SharpCap itself in a couple of minutes. Let me just see if I can, and actually this is going to be interesting. I'm not sure if this is going to live stack, but we'll, not live stack. I'm not sure if this is going to plate solve, but we'll give it a shot. So let's grab a frame. You can obviously see straight away that we've hit the core of Andromeda. It's a little off center, but it's there. In fact, in many ways, it might have been a good idea just to have left it there because, I mean, obviously then actually, why don't we do that? Why don't we just leave it there, because then we can actually hopefully see some detail in one side of it, because otherwise we're going to see mainly the core. Okay, so right, so M31, let's set the live stack going, and let's see what we get. And I'll see if I can pull up the best full. Yeah, the only full screen image I think I can get here is I can obviously delete the I can take the histogram down, either delete it or and then I can obviously I'd have a much bigger image here. So, and I think the live stacker will continue to work. So let me try that. Yes. Oh, but it pulls the live stacker. So I cannot do that. So I have to initiate the live stack. Oh wait, but it did pause the live stacker. It didn't. So what I could do, yes. So what I could do here is I could live stack, which is obviously what I'm doing at the moment. Once I'm happy with my live stack, I could then delete the histogram here, which would then give me a relatively full screen rendition of the image on the real estate that I've got available to me. So yes, I could kind of do that, I think. So let me just move these histograms again. Don't want to go too far here, because the trouble is it's got such a bright core, we will end up losing everything around the core. Right, so let's color balance this. Not sure I like that. Okay, so there's two color balances here. There's the auto color balance based on stars, and there's a auto color balance based on bringing the histograms together. I usually use the second one, but I know other people that prefer the star one. So we're beginning to collect images here of M31, and if I bring that across a little bit. Okay, we've got a lot of noise in this image at the moment, but what you can see is you can start to see the lanes that are associated with the spiral nature of this galaxy beginning to form. And obviously, as we stack more images here, the noise level will go down. It's pretty noisy in there at the moment, so let's just pull that back a bit. Each time it takes a frame, you'll see this just ease down a little bit. And sometimes as well, another way of actually taking the noise down a little bit is just to give a little bit of a tweak on the color side if you feel there's too much red or too much blue in this case. So I'll just bring the blue down a little bit, I think. And let's zoom back out. Okay. So you can see here, my core is pretty burnt out here, but you can start to see lanes forming now in the spiral arms of M31. I'm still not particularly thrilled with this color. I'm not thrilled with that. But let me see if I can just get this. I seem to have a lot of blue in this image tonight. I'm not sure why. And again, it may be due to the fact that we've got some high level cloud floating around. And this is just making my life a little bit more difficult than it would normally be. Okay. No, gone too far there. Yeah. And of course, M32 being 3 degrees wide by 1 degree high, is obviously huge compared to the field of view of my camera. So it's not really an ideal target. But if you offset it like this again, I think you can see these dust lanes are beginning to form. And if we gave this some time, these would start to form up nicely. I do actually find that M32 is a bit of a challenging target, really. It's got such a high dynamic range on it that it can be a very difficult target to get a really good image of. But I can't say I'm thrilled with that, but again, kind of shows you where we're at. So I'll save this, I think, and I will go on, I think, to M33 because we will get I'm assuming that we can see it, which maybe, well, we'll soon find out. I mean, this is the whole point of having the eFinder, and as you can see, we're pointing at a palm tree, so clearly that's not going to work. You can see the palm tree here is one of the many objects that I have to maneuver my way around here, so that's not going to work. So let's just go back to the Heart Nebula and see if that's risen enough above my HF antenna. Oh, as you can see, it's kind of moved up in the sky, kind of a little bit. So maybe it's moved up enough that we might be lucky enough to be able to image it. So I'm going to turn my live stack off. I'm going to ooh, it still looks a bit horrible. That's still a little bit. That's not good. It's obviously picking. Oh, let me. It's obviously picking a reflection up off of that thing. So let's go back to cart to seal again. And I have a feeling that this, were we there a minute ago? Or let me just quickly take a look at what that one is. I think we might have been there. 15, was that the cave? Right. So let's see where else we're going to go. Let's see. NGC 281. Pretty sure I imaged that last night, and yeah, let's go. Yeah, okay. Let's take a look at this one. All right, 281. I'm gonna just let the mount settle for a second. The live stacker is off. And so as you can see with all of this, it's very much workflow, right? It's doing things in the correct order in order that you end up in the right place. Letting the mount settle. We'll do the plate solve now. Hopefully, let's have a look. Yeah, I'm just checking the chat boxes here. Yeah, once you once you start to get light pollution, it can start throwing the all plate the plate solver off. My guess would be poor tracking. Trackpad does a full screen mode, which toggles the FE. Yeah, so that there is an F11 key, but as I can show you, all that does actually is just get rid of the top things. It like the the outside of the thing, it doesn't really increase things a tremendous amount. So we're on NGC 281. We have repositioned the mount. We've done our plate solve here. So we'll just let the mount settle down again, and then we'll start the live stacker. Let's see what we get. So this is a bright emission nebula. Hoping we'll see a little bit more detail here, and I can already see actually that we're going to get a little bit luckier with this one. And of course I have forgot to rename it here. So NGC 281. So I'm going to redo my live stack again, because otherwise when I save it, it won't go to the right folder. So we'll just give that a few moments to capture a few images now. But I think I can show you what will happen if I do F11. So if I go to full screen, that's essentially what happens. It gets a little bit bigger. I mean, it is bigger. And I guess if I pulled this down a little bit, um, yeah. So maybe you could argue that that is definitely a little bit better actually. So I've now got rid of a lot of the stuff that's around my sharp cap screen. The only problem now is that, although I think if I go over to the side, maybe, nope. Yeah, if I go to the top, I can get back the stuff, but I can't get my controls back on this side now. So I would actually have to do F11 to come back out of this to do my other ones. But yes, this is a little bit larger for sure. So we've now collected 64 seconds worth of data. And again, it's not great. And this is partly because what's happened with the sky here tonight. This high level cloud is um, is definitely playing around with things here. It's not helping at all, really. But again, you can start to see the nebular form here. Again, it's not particularly great. But let me see what I can try and do to improve this a little bit. But you can see the shape. And let me get my color balance, which of course now I've lost. Okay, so now let me see if I can bring that. That is not the way I wanted to go. Okay, so there's a little bit, I got a little bit more red in there. Let me bring some blue out of that. Okay, so now we're beginning to see, I'm going to probably back the red down a little bit. Now we're beginning to see a little more shape here and a little more definition in the nebula. Again, it's not a great image, but it's not too bad. And for the purposes of outreach and casual observing, this is a good first start. And some of the images that you will get for other nebula are much better and significantly clearer, as I can actually show you in a few seconds. So what I typically do is, as you've probably noticed, as I go through my workflow here, I will image for a little while. It's typically between about 2 and 5 minutes. I'll adjust my image so that I'm reasonably happy with it. I will then save my image, and then I do a whole load of image captures, obviously during the evening. And then I will, the next day, usually go back and go through those and compare them with the ones that I've got previously. And if I prefer the image, I'll keep that as my sort of master image. And if I don't, then I'll obviously discard it. And that's typically the way that I build up my library of images. And again, this one's not going to be a winner because of the sky conditions tonight. I'm really having to force this histogram to get some of these colors out, and there's too much noise. but I can show you an earlier image of this, which I think you'll see is a little bit better. Still not ideal, because I'm sure if I went down to TDS, I would get an even better image. But let's press F11, and did that help? Come on, let's try that again. F11. Okay, so we brought, as it reorganizes itself. So let me just go up to my sharp cap, and these are all my master images, if you like, and these are typically organized alphabetically. So if I go and look at NGC 281, which is what we were just looking at, so that's the best image so far that I've got of NGC 281. That image was taken probably about 3 or 4 days ago. I don't think it was taken particularly long ago. And as you can see, it's significantly better than the image that we've just been looking at. And as Woody quite rightly pointed out, right, the fact that I've got an 87% moon doesn't help particularly either. So, we are kind of fighting some demons this evening. But some nights are better than others, and at least I'm outside and enjoying the night air, which is fantastic. So that's an image of 281 that I collected a few days ago, and you can obviously see much more detail in the nebula itself, and so forth and so on. And I always capture my images at this half degree by half degree, and it's nice because it kind of gives you a nice reference point. If I come back out, you can see this one is, the moon should be slightly larger. That was taken when the optical chain was slightly arranged slightly differently. But it does give you an idea of relative dimensions. For instance, this is the Crescent Nebula. If we could be doing the Crescent Nebula, and I don't think we can because it's rolled over onto the meridian. But again, it gives you a nice idea of what can be achieved on a fairly decent evening for this will be NGC 6888, the Crescent Nebula. So, and again, that's quite a nice image, and for outreach purposes is ideal. It obviously, shows the expanding supernova wavefront here quite dramatically. So yes, kind of a nice image. Anyway, going back to where we were. So let's see if we can hit a galaxy here. Click the wrong key there. So let's go to here. Right. So okay, so let's see if we get lucky. Let's see if we can go supernova hunting. So the supernova that I'm interested in is NGC. Well, so it's in a galaxy, and the galaxy is NGC 7722. So let's find that, and let's slew over and see if we are going to get a clear view. So the first thing we'll do is look at our wide field camera. And that looks pretty clear. That's obviously got up above. Give it a little bit more gain. Yep, so we're in the clear. So we've got, and you can actually just see a tiny bit of tree down here. So we're definitely in the clear. So let's see then if we can image this. So live stack off. Let's see if we can get this right in the center of the thing. So we'll go, we'll do a plates off. Might have to do that again. I add the gain up a little bit too high. And I would normally run this gain lower as well. Typically, I would run my gain. Oh, okay. Near the zenith now is the Cocoon Nebula. Yeah, we can go take a look at that in a moment, Dave, if this fails. let's see if we can do this one first, though. So NGC 7722 is kind of interestingly, I was talking to my brother about this morning. And as I said the words, because it's 183 million light years away, I kind of said to him, in a galaxy far, far away, obviously quoting from Star Wars. Um, but yes, this galaxy is a long way away, and it's relatively small. So I don't know whether we're going to get lucky or not tonight. So all we can do here is we've repositioned. We're going to set our live stacker going, and let's see if we actually see the galaxy. If we see the galaxy, we will see the supernova. If we don't see the galaxy, obviously we won't see the supernova. So it's kind of, yes, that's how, let's see where this goes. Now, the reason, oh, there's the galaxy. I think we found the galaxy. It's really small. So we might have to give this a little bit of time. And we may get lucky enough here. So I can tell you that NGC 7722 is a pretty small galaxy. It's a magnitude 13.6 galaxy, and we're looking for a magnitude 12 supernova that was discovered at the beginning of this month, around the 6th of September. And the reason there's a San Diego connection here is because it was found at the Zwicky Transient Facility at Palomar, interestingly enough, which I didn't know a lot about. And evidently, the ZTF is a time domain survey telescope that became operational in 2017. And it can image, well, basically it images 47 degrees of a square, 47 degrees square, in one go. And then it basically, obviously that's a lot of sky, and it images throughout the evening, and they obviously do plate solving and comparison from one day to the next, and they can obviously detect the presence of new points of light, obviously some of which are supernova. Um, it can actually scan 3,750 square degrees an hour to a maximum depth of 20.5 on magnitude scale. So it's pretty faint stars, and it's used to discover supernovas and other transient objects. It's also used for studying variable stars, binaries, etc., etc. So that's a little bit about that. I've not actually been to that facility or was particularly aware it was there, but obviously on the 6th of September they did actually see this supernova. So let's see if we can zoom in a little bit now and see what we got. And that is one pretty horrible image currently. So this is going to take some work at best. Man, this is going to be tough. Let's see. Got to try and figure out a way of getting as you can see, I'm clicking slowly. One click at a time is just moving my color balancing a little bit. And I'm not sure I actually liked where I ended up there. So I'm going to try a couple of auto balances and then retry again. So let's do that one. Okay. So actually I can see the supernova. It's not the clearest thing in the world at the moment, and we're going to have to zoom in a little bit more. and this is very, very pixelated. And I may actually I'm going to drop it into black and white actually. Might be a bit easier to see. And I'm wondering now, when Corey shot this the other night, whether he had a Barlow in or something, because he typically runs at a lower focal length than I do, and his image was significantly bigger. So I'm thinking, and I didn't ask at the time when I saw this, I'm thinking that he definitely had that in, that he changed his optical. He had changed his optical path somewhat from what I'm used to him shooting. But okay, so this is not great, but here's our galaxy. We can't see too much detail about our galaxy, but this is the supernova right there. And let me go and show you a couple of images that will prove that. So if I go down to here, I dropped an image earlier on. And actually, I might do this reverse. I think I can do the reverse thing. Let me work that out in a minute. Okay, so here is our galaxy. This is how it was. And as you can see, this is the new point source of light that has been detected that is on the opposite sides to these three stars in kind of a straight line. So these are the three stars, and then you've got the core, and then you've got the additional point of light there. So let's go back to our sharp cap, and let's see if we can see that. Yeah, so here are our three stars. Here's our galaxy. And that there is Supernova 2020ssf, which was discovered on September the 6th of this year. And it's located just four seconds west, actually nearly 5 seconds west and 2 seconds south of the center of NGC 7722, and it is which itself is at now I've got to get these magnitudes correct here. The galaxy is magnitude yeah, I think the galaxy is magnitude 13.6 and the supernova is magnitude 12. No, actually I got it the wrong way around. The galaxy is at 12 and the supernova is at 13.6. So here you are actually seeing the supernova here. And I must admit, I will apologize for the lack of detail here, because Corey clearly changed his optical path and I wasn't aware of that. But it's not, you can see that there's something there, which is more than probably we could have expected on an evening like tonight. So I'm not actually completely distraught about not getting it. And it's the first supernova that I've actually seen in the flesh. And to give you an idea, I think I said that this galaxy is 183 million light years away. So we are looking at a time pre the dinosaurs. And the galaxy itself is about 93,000 light years across. So it's about slightly under half the size of M31 that we looked at earlier on. So that's my supernova hunting for this evening. So I'm, like I say, I think we could do a better job with a Barlow in. Well, of course, the first thing I could do is drop the focal reducer out. That would have helped. But it's at least we've seen it, which is good, and you can obviously see it's right. We're right down into the pixelization of the sensor here, so we really are stretching here. All right. So I'm pretty pleased with that. So let's go to the request that we had. Oh, so I think I better save that actually before I go and. So I'm going to go save that. And I think I'm going to end up just saving it in black and white because I don't think. Let me just bring the saturation down a little bit. That will help. And let me drop a little bit of color out of this and just pull back. Yeah, I mean, it's such a small image. Okay, so let me just take another quick snapshot there as well. Okay, great. So we had a request, so we will go and look for the Cocoon Nebula, I think Dave was looking for. So I see, is it going to be on the other side of the meridian? Let's have a look. No, I think we're, oh, has it crossed? May have done. This thing gets confusing sometimes. Let me think. Yes, I think we've crossed. But, maybe let me give it a shot here. I'm actually right next to the mount so that I can see if any of my cables get snagged. Let me see if I can actually get there, because if I can plate solve, then I don't need to worry about where the mount position is. I can tell you that if I was doing this using CPWI, we would miss the target completely. But let me give this a shot. So I'm going to swing my mount, and yes, it's obviously going to do a meridian flip here. And I just need to be careful with the trailing cables that I don't catch anything. So I'm just going to keep an eye on the mount as it slews next to me. And the mount is coming round. And yeah, I think we're going to be okay. Okay, so the first thing to do is obviously establish that we've got clear sky, and so we have. So let's move to the live stack. Let's switch the live stack off. And this is one of the advantages of actually being able to plate solve. I just could not do this if this wasn't if I didn't have the ability to plate solve, because once I flip onto the other side of the meridian, because of the balance in the mount, the backlash is not being taken out so effectively, and it will just miss by quite some margin, certainly bigger than the field of view. Right, so I've got my target name in there. Let me do a snapshot and do a plate solve, and then let's see if we can pick up the Cocoon Nebula. So it's extracting the sources. Hopefully if this number is large, things will be good. And then the mount will move. Now I am told that currently I have the All Sky plate solver integrated with SharpCap. There is another one, I think it's called ASTAP, that apparently is about 10 times quicker, but that still wouldn't make the down sampling, I don't think, any quicker. And to be honest, it's actually, kind of nice to have a 30-second break between targets anyway. Grab a glass of water or whatever. So we've obviously plate solved. The mount is recentering. And actually, surprisingly, it was only off by about 0.4 of a degree, so it wasn't horribly off. Let's turn the live stacker on. Let's clear and let's see what happens. Let's zoom out. I'm going to start that live stacker again because I've still got a little bit of motion on the mount. So the next frame will be better. Okay. And let's start collecting images and see where this takes us. Okay. I think we can already see where the Cocoon Nebula is going to appear. That's beginning to form. And I must say, at the moment, I don't think my flats are as good as they could be. One of the problems I got with the C8 is actually that I obviously need the way that I take my flats is I obviously need a bigger um, white thing to cover the aperture, and it's not the way I used to do it isn't working at the moment, and so therefore I basically did a sky shot the other day as the sun was setting, just to get a flat. But I'm pretty convinced from the fact that you can see the imbalance here. Although it is possible it might be picking up a little bit of light coming from some of the upstairs windows here. This could be associated with that, but you can certainly see the Cocoon Nebula forming here. But it's definitely not as balanced as it could be. So I'll probably have to reshoot my flats here. I had actually been having a little bit of a problem with the flats and the darks that I've been in contact with SharpCap with recently, but that seems to have resolved itself now. So kind of pleased that we've managed to solve that problem. Okay, I'm just gonna darken this down. Oops, went too far. Actually, I think what I'll probably do is let me see if I can bring it in. Yeah. Yeah, the sky's not great today. It really is proving to be challenging a little bit here because again, I'm just fighting background noise all the time, and normally this is not as bad. I'm just trying to find a black point that kind of works here, but as you can see, I've still got a lot of stuff going on here. That didn't really help. That certainly didn't help. For some reason as well, my blue is way up today. I'm not sure exactly what's going on. It's definitely proving it's far more difficult evening to image nebulas, particularly the not so strong ones, than would normally be the case. But you know, I guess that's just astronomy. Some days are more challenging than others, and this is clearly a challenging day. But you kind of, you know, so here you can start to see what you expect with the Cocoon Nebula, right? The centerpiece with the nice dark outer ring around it. So this is obviously a dark nebulosity that's blocking out a lot of the surrounding stars. And then obviously we get the background of stars. Again, this is not going to be a stellar image. I believe I've got an image of the same nebula at the same resolution that I shot down at TDS last weekend. So let me just bring that one up a second, because we are struggling with the sky tonight for sure. So if I go into my target database, and I believe, yeah, so there's the cocoon that this should bring up. Yeah, so that's a better image of the Cocoon Nebula. Again, not perfect. It's not the strongest of nebulas. Some nebulas come out really well in EAA. You can see I've still got a little bit too much noise. in the background of this picture. But again, you can see the Cocoon Nebula, you can see the structure within the nebula itself, and then you can see the very distinct dark area that sits around the Cocoon Nebula against the background of the Milky Way itself. So again, kind of a nice image. And I was fighting no moon that evening, and obviously in a Bortle, whatever it is down at TDS, it's certainly a lot better than it is in San Diego. You can obviously get some quite nice images. One of the nebular, since I'm actually just, I mean, this is everybody recognizes this nebula M27. This shoots beautifully from anywhere. It's almost impossible not to get a good shot of M27, whether you're in a Bortle 8 sky or under a dark sky. It's such a bright nebula. It's really easy to image. So for public outreach, of course, you try and pick your targets. When I'm doing this type of outreach, I tend to explore a little bit. And since talking about exploring, and I'm not sure if any of you guys have this, but one of the things that I like to do is kind of explore constellation to constellation and pick up, targets. And um, obviously, that's not going to work too well tonight because we are just, dealing with not particularly great skies. Um, and while I'm actually chatting, let me see if M33 has actually risen to a point where I might be able to image it. One of the things that I like to do if I'm doing constellation to constellation is use Burnham's Celestial Handbook. And I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with that book or trilogy of books, but it's one of my favorite books, or trilogy of books. Um, it's a huge compendium of information put together by Robert Burnham, who was a pretty well-known astronomer of the sort of 70s, 60s, that time frame, and he compiled copious notes on everything that he did. And this was put together as what's become Burnham's Celestial Handbook, which is a book I absolutely love. He tells some. He's got a great way of describing things, and he walks you through, the major stars of the constellation, and then the primary targets that are within that constellation. And it's a fun read to have that book by you when you're, just slowly wandering through a the night sky. And there is actually a connection that I'm sure some of you know of Robert Burnham to the San Diego Astronomy Association. It is said that in his later days, when he was sadly destitute and unknown, that he did actually visit the association on a number of times and was never really recognized. And he was then subsequently buried in the military cemetery at off Rosecrans, I think. So it's kind of an interesting story, and there's been numerous articles written about Burnham and his sort of contribution to astronomy, and the book, and how his life kind of tragically finished. He was basically homeless at the end, and kind of an interesting, a really interesting guy. Fantastic book. And as Dave Becker said, Burnham's is the best. If you have not got a copy of Burnham's Celestial Handbook, I would thoroughly recommend that you find a copy, which you can do through the Amazon bookstore quite easily secondhand. And you can usually pick up a really good quality copy for about $45, and it's absolutely worth every penny. I've got two pristine copies. Well, my current copy is not so pristine now because I use it all the time. But my brother has an absolutely pristine copy that I was able to purchase, and give to him as well, because he's a bit of an astronomer. And unfortunately, this plate solve looks as though it's going to fail. This is on M33, so we'll just give it another couple of seconds here, and if it does fail, I'll bump. Oh, that's interesting. So I was on the wrong camera. So it's trying to plate solve on the wrong camera, I think. So let me switch cameras. Whoops, I don't want to do that. Let me switch cameras and try again. I didn't realize it would do that. So, okay, so live stack off. And, we didn't get too bad an image before it sort of disappeared off there. Let's plate solve. But yes, as Dave Decker said, Burnham's is an absolutely fantastic book, and I'm not kidding. Apart from the tables, I have actually read it end to end twice. He's got some just incredible stories in there. He was quite an interesting character, if not a little unusual, shall we say. But yes, a great buy. Probably one of the best buys you'll ever do if you're into astronomy. Right, so we're looking at M33, and I've plate solved. So let's see if we can just bring up a picture of the Triangulum Galaxy before we wind up for this evening. We've been running about just over 90 minutes, and see where we go with this. So we've moved our thing. We're going to live stack. We're going to clear our stack. I'm going to take a drink of water. And we have a galaxy already beginning to show in the center of our image, so that's good. I will start to adjust histograms in a couple of seconds so that we can start to see. Dave, what is the link to the SDAA channel? Is it on a website? So Curtis, if you're, so my videos actually currently go on to my YouTube channel. And I'm not sure, and maybe Dave can answer this, whether SDAA has a YouTube channel. Perhaps Dave can answer that question if he's still online. And we can go from there. And it may be possible, I mean, depending on how the club goes forward with outreach, which of course is somewhat dependent on the pandemic, of course, it may be possible to actually get the club set up with a YouTube channel at some point. Okay, so we've got a galaxy forming here. Again, I don't think we're going to get a spectacular image, but at least it's going to be decent, and it's probably a good place to stop for tonight. And we'll just collect a few images on this, and let's see if we can pull something decent out. And I think Dave is saying he will check as to whether there is a YouTube website. And so, since I was talking about Burnham, we must be in the constellation of the Triangulum, which in Burnham's book is in volume 3. So I will just turn to that and flick through my constellation list here. And I will tell you that the Burnham's book was published in 1972. Uh, it's kind of in Courier or something very similar to Courier. It's not the prettiest of fonts, but don't let that put you off, because as I said, it's a fantastic book. So Burnham wrote of M33, which is actually the Pinwheel Galaxy, one of the bright members of the local groups of galaxies, and probably the nearest spiral galaxy after the Andromeda system, M31. M33 was one notable discovery of Messier found in August of 1764, described as a whitish light of almost even brilliance. He then goes on to describe the various other astronomers of the time, such as Bode and Herschel and Admiral Smith, who described the Smythe, for instance, described M33 as a large, distinct but faint and illy defined pale white nebula with a bright star, a little NP, presumably that's north of something, and 5 others following at a distance. Between them and the nebula, there is a distinct gleam of mere nebulous matter. So obviously at that time, they thought this was a nebula as opposed to, no, of course we now know it's a galaxy. And it's kind of interesting because in Burnham's book, there are a number of plates. And on the next page, which is page 1898, there is a picture of the Pinwheel Galaxy taken from the Lowell Observatory, which is where Burnham did most of his work, from their 13-inch telescope there. And it's kind of interesting to compare what you actually see when you're doing your EAA session with obviously a much smaller piece of equipment, to the plates that they've got in the book, because surprisingly enough, you are actually seeing considerably more detail. In fact, 3 pages on 1901, there is another picture of the galaxy in much more detail. So it's kind of interesting to be able to compare what you're able to do now with relatively simple equipment to what was possible in the days of Burnham and other astronomers who were, obviously at well-known observatories in the US. So let us just then, so we've collected a good bit of data, about 5 minutes worth of data here. So let's just see if I can pull sliders around a little bit and see if I can get a slightly better image. I'm gonna allow myself to get a little bit of background noise here, because I want to see some detail in these spiral arms, which I can now start to see quite clearly. You can really begin to see the spirals here, but I'm sacrificing some background noise. And clearly, with the way the sky is at the moment, the color balance is just all over the place. I've got this red on this side and these greens on the other side. That's kind of weird. Actually, that improved things quite a bit. It'll probably be improved actually if I perhaps go into black and white, and just image this in black and white by knocking my colors. And actually, here are the stars that Burnham was talking about in that that Admiral Smythe was talking about in his description, of being in a line. Those are these 4 stars that are running down the side of the M33 here. And in fact, this is a more pleasing image, I think, tonight in black and white, than it is. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I can, let me just grab that slider, just drag it across a little bit, knock this down. There we go. Yeah, too much. Go back. Go back. There you go. I went too far. Go back. Okay. Yeah, not horrible. Let's just see if we got too much. Yeah, okay, that's not too bad at all. Quite happy with that. Obviously, we needed to drop into black and white. If I bring the color back up, maybe I'll just, oh, horrible. Obviously, shooting in black and white is the way to go today. In fact, I did almost, at the beginning of the session, replace the filter I took out with a red filter so that I would have just shot from red up through near infrared. But I wasn't too sure with the clouds whether that was going to work, because near infrared is actually a good the ZWO cameras are sensitive to near infrared, and you do get a bit more definition coming in with near infrared on galaxies in particular, particularly if there's dust and stuff in the way between you and the galaxy. But as you can see, that's not too bad an image now that we've kind of stabilized on in black and white. And this is one of the advantages, of course, of being able to, take the color saturation completely out and turn this into what is effectively a black and white image. And that actually looks quite good. And I could probably actually just go over here. Whoops, let's try that again. Let's reset that. Thank you. Right, let's try it moving again. Let's bring our black across to start with. So I'm just going to bring the black into maybe here, and then I'm going to slide this one. So you can see now I'm actually combining, not very effectively at the moment, but I'll get this right in a minute. I'm actually combining the effects of the two histograms now. So I'm doing two independent stretches, which is like it's like doing a square type stretch, But again, that's not too bad. I don't quite have the contrast there yet. If I just maneuver this perhaps a little bit over, maybe I went too far again, and bring this back. And I'm going to ease that back again. Yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that as a image. That's probably a good place, I think, to finish this evening. I think I'll save that one. And that's 10 minutes of imaging. We've got it in black and white. I think trying to put it into any form of color is not going to be good. But yes, I think that's a reasonable place to finish off. You can see some of the interesting details. This line of 4 straight stars, as was described earlier, you can certainly see the details in the spiral arms. And that's not too bad an image, albeit that we in the end had to resort to black and white. So I think that is probably the end of tonight's program. I really appreciate everybody joining again. This is something I enjoy doing, and hopefully you guys have had an entertaining evening. I am pretty pleased that we did actually get to see our supernova, considering the conditions of the sky. And while we've not had the most successful evening of imaging, we have at least seen some quite good targets. And actually, I think we finished off on a decent rendition of M33, having started off on a fairly nice rendition of M15. So fantastic. Thanks everybody for joining. I will close the live stream down in a few seconds, and hopefully I will see some of you again in person, perhaps down at TDS over the next couple of weeks, and look out for the next live stream event. I'm sure I'll probably get something on the air in the next couple of weeks as well. And I would also suggest, if you're interested in having a different perspective, Corey, I think it's Mooney, Mooney. If you look on the Cloudy Nights EAA forum for announcements of upcoming things. Corey does a really good live stream. He did one on Friday night. He's in Boston, so you know, if he starts at 9, typically it's 6 o'clock over here. He does a really good live stream as well, and hits some nice targets. So yes, check Corey out as well. I'm sure you'll have an entertaining evening. He uses sharp cap, and I always learn something when I go and check out his live stream as I did on Friday night. Okay, guys, well, really appreciate you joining this evening. I will end the stream at that point and look forward to catching up with you again soon. Have a great evening. Bye.